How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Lamed Vav, Daf 36 of Masechet Nedarim, friends. What time is it? Okay. Well, okay. Today we're going to weiter on the sugya of whether you need das for certain korbanos, knowledge, intellect for certain korbanos, and then we're going to go weiter in the Mishnah where we say that somebody who is not allowed to benefit somebody else can nonetheless separate truma for him. So exciting sugyas today. Okay, so we're gonna start on Daf Lamed Vav Amud Aleph, about 10-15 lines into the page after the two dads gufa. We had said earlier. Rabbi Yochanan says, Rabbi Yochanan kol tzrichen das chutz mimuchusei kapor. Everybody, right? All the korbanos require das, right? Require intellect. Chutz mimuchusei kapor, except for by muchusei kapor, by these korbanos for people like Zov, Mitzorah, Yoledes, who need to bring these korbanos in order to be able to eat kodshim, in order to have a full kapara, in order to eat kodshim. So Shari Adam maybe korban abonav abnosav aktanim, because a fellow brings these korbanos even for his minor children by mechusar kapara. So what? So do we say that a fellow can bring a korban chatas for his friend? Shekein oder maybe alishto shota kirib Yehuda, because a fellow could bring a korban for his wife who's a shota, like Rabbi Yehuda. Alama Amar Belaz hifish chatas chelev chavero lo asa klum. So why does Rabbi Belaz say that if you separate a korban chatas for your friend, you did absolutely nothing, right? So if we're saying that, if we're saying that by mechusar kapara you don't need any das, so then we should say that you should be able to bring a korban chatas for your friend, because after all we say that according to Abuda, as we saw yesterday, you could bring a korban for your wife who's a shota, to which the Gemara says ishto shota echidami. But what would be the situation where you would bring a korban chatas for your wife who's a shota? Ida ochlok she shota labas korbani. If we're talking about where she ate chelev when she was already a shota, well, she wouldn't. If she's a shota, then she's not responsible to bring a korban chatas for the actions that she does. Ida ochlok she pikachas v'nishtates. And if she ate the chelev when she was not a shota, and then she became a shota. She somehow lost her intellect and became a shota. So then, ha'amr b'yirmiyah, amr b'abo, amr b'yochanan, ochel chelev ifish korban, v'nishtate. If a fellow ate chelev and then he set aside a korban and then became a shota, v'chaz v'nishtafe, even if he already then became unshoted, pasul, the korban is pasul, ho v'nitcha yidache, because once the korban gets pushed off, it's completely pushed off. So therefore, we wanted to say that, well, if by mechusar kippurim you don't need das, we said that a fellow could bring korban mechusar kippurim even for his children who are minors, because the das is not a requirement for mechusar kippurim. So we want to say, well, then if a fellow could bring a korban chatos for his wife who's a shota, so then we want to say that's like Rabbi Yehuda, so then you should be able to bring a korban chatas for any of your friends. But we know that that's not true. To which the Gemara says, 1 second, who says that you can actually bring a korban chatas for your wife who's a shota? We said yesterday that, right, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you could bring a korban yoledes for your wife who's a shota, but not a korban chatas. So therefore we have no reason to assume that you'd be able to bring a korban chatas for your friend. Elamayata Yovi Pesach al Chaveru, but maybe a fellow should be able to bring a korban Pesach for his friend. Shekein Adam maybe Albonav Abnosav Aktanim, because you bring a korban Pesach even for your sons and daughters who are minors. Alam Amr Belazar Fish Pesach Chaveru Lo Asa Klum. But why does Rabbi Belazar say that if you separate a korban Pesach for your friend, it's irrelevant? You haven't accomplished anything. So we see that even though you bring a korban pesach for your minor children, and therefore it doesn't require das, yet you can't bring a korban pesach for your friend. So Amar Reb Zera says, Reb Zera said leveis avos lavda oraisa. Says Reb Zera, when we bring a korban pesach for our minor children, it is not actually a mitzvah de oraisa, right? So mida oraisa, children are not actually included in the Korban Pesach. Mimai, how do we know? Miditnana Omer Levanov, Harei Hareini Shochet as a Pesach, Amisha Yaile Mikem Rishon. That I am going to include in my Korban Pesach for whoever gets there first, right? He says to his kids, he makes a competition, he says whoever gets to Yerushalayim first will be included in the Korban Pesach. Right, Yerushalayim came Shichnas Rosh of Rubo Zoch Bechelko Muzak Esech Avimo. So whoever gets to Jerusalem first, Memele, it's going to be them who are included in the Korban Pesach. V'i Omer Tzeleves Avos Deoraisa Abisu Koyu Muzake Luhu. Now, if you say that including your children in the Korban Pesach is midoraisa, then how can, right? Then they would have to be signed up for the Korban Pesach before they go and get the Korban Pesach, and therefore, how, right? If his children had to be included in the Korban Pesach midoraisa, how can it just be that he says, okay, whoever gets there first, will be retroactively included in the Korban? They would have to be already part of it in advance. So it must be that they're only included midarabon. Well, then why would the father tell them, try to get there first, you could be included in the Korban Pesach if it's not midoraisa anyways. They desires and b'mitzvahs, so that they should be excited to do the mitzvahs. Tanya Nam Yochid, we learn in the Brayso Oichit, Maise Hoya Vikadmu Bonus Levonim. There was one episode Maise, and the girls beat the boys. V'nimtu Bonus Vizos Levonim Shvalim, and the girls were excited to do the mitzvah, and the boys were lazy. Now we had said that if Reuven is not allowed to get any benefit from Shimon, nonetheless Shimon can separate Reuven's meiser for his truma for him. So Ibadu, that's a kasha. Troim mishelo al shel chavero tzarich daito o lo. If a fellow separates truma from his own stuff for his friend, does he need his friend's knowledge or not? Okay. So so you have Shimon. Okay, Shimon's got a whole bunch of stuff that needs it's tevel, it needs to be tied. And Reuven says, you know what? I'll just separate some of my own stuff, and I'll have Shimon's stuff in mind, and I'll basically separate my own stuff, and it'll count as Shimon's truma. Shimon doesn't have to do anything. So, does Shimon need to know that Reuven is doing this or not? Do we say, do we say, well, Reuven's doing Shimon a favor? He shouldn't need to ask Shimon. Reuven's separating his own stuff on behalf of, right, so that Shimon doesn't have to do it himself. And Shimon, without doing anything, his stuff is no longer tevel. Why should Reuven have to ask Shimon? He's doing him a big favor. Or do we say, look, the reason is because Shimon wants to do a mitzvah. Shimon likes doing mitzvahs. And therefore he doesn't want Reuven to just come and say, oh wait, you don't have this mitzvah to do, I did it for you already. So maybe Reuven would have to ask Shimon first. So Tashma Kominir Torim es Trumosov ves Maisosov Ledaito. Now we said in our Mishnah that if Reuven is not allowed to get any benefit from Shimon, Shimon can nonetheless separate Truma for Reuven. Now, b'may askinon. What is how is Shimon seperating Truma for Reuven? Ilema min balakri al shel balakri. If Shimon is separating Reuven's own produce for Reuven, right? So in this example, Reuven has all the produce, and Shimon's going on to Reuven, right? Reuven's not allowed to get benefit from Shimon. Shimon goes onto Reuven's property, and he's separating Truma for Reuven on Reuven's property from Reuven's own stuff. Uledaito demand. And whose das are we talking about? Ilim uledaito delay. If Shimon's just going on his own motivation, on his own accord, so man shavye shaliach. Well, who made Shimon the representative to go do it, right? Meaning this is Reuven's stuff, his property, his stuff that needs to be tied. If Shimon just goes onto Reuven's property without asking Reuven and just starts separating Truma for him, who made Shimon the appointee, the messenger? Ella. Nedaitu de balakri. Well, let's say then it's with the knowledge of Reuven. So, Reuven knows, right? And Shimon is going in with Reuven's knowledge and his consent, and he's separating stuff for Reuven, so Reuven doesn't have to do it. Well then, Shimon is benefiting Reuven. Right? Reuven asked him to separate the stuff, he's going in and doing it. So he's benefiting Reuven, and he's not allowed to benefit Reuven. Se'ela mishalo al shel hakri al bal hakri. So it must be then that Shimon is separating his own stuff on behalf of Reuven. So Reuven's got a whole bunch of stuff that needs tithing, and Shimon says, look, I'll separate my own stuff, and it'll count for Reuven, and Reuven doesn't have to separate any tithes. U'ledaito deman. And whose knowledge are we asking about? If we're saying that it's talking about the knowledge of Reuven, who owns this stuff, so he's going to be benefiting him, right? That if Shimon's doing it with Reuven's knowledge, then Shimon is benefiting Reuven. So rather, it must be that Shimon is doing it with his own knowledge, right? So Reuven is not allowed to get benefit from Shimon. Reuven's got a whole bunch of stuff that's tevel that needs tithing. Shimon goes and separates tithes for Reuven. Now, if Reuven knows about this, well, then Reuven's benefiting from Shimon. It must be that Shimon is separating from his own property with his own knowledge, and Reuven doesn't know about it. So Mishalo Torim al Chavero, and we're saying that Shimon is separating his own stuff on behalf of Reuven, right? For Reuven, so Reuven doesn't have to do anything, and Shimon's separating from his own stuff. And if we're saying that Shimon would have to tell Reuven, well then Reuven, right? If it would have to be with Reuven's knowledge and consent, so then Shimon would be benefiting Reuven. Elalav ein tzarich das. So we see that it doesn't require knowledge, right? So we had asked our original question at the top of the Amud, that if Shimon is going to be separating from his own stuff in order so that Reuven doesn't have to separate it, so does he need to let Reuven know or not? It sounds like the answer from our Mishnah, where we say that if Reuven is not allowed to get benefit from Shimon, Shimon can nonetheless separate tithes for him. It must be that Shimon does not need to let Reuven know, because otherwise he would be getting benefit. So we see that if Shimon separates his own stuff for Reuven, he doesn't need to let Reuven know. To which the Gemara says, La'olam, Mishal Ba'al Hakri, Al Ba'al Hakri. This Gemara says, no, that is not a proof, because I could say that it's talking about Shimon separating from Reuven's stuff on behalf of Reuven. Kida Omar Rave, and it's like Rave says, Ba'omer kol arotza lisrom, Yavo v'yisrom, Achanami ba'omer v'chule. And it's talking about where Reuven just says, look, anybody who wants to come and separate stuff can come and separate, but he's not specifically acting as Reuven's shaliach, and therefore it would be acceptable. And we don't consider it as if Shimon is benefiting Reuven. Alright, fine. But mini Reb Yirmiyah me Reb Zera. So Reb Yirmiyah asks a kasha from Reb Zera. Toy mishalo al shel chaveru, tovas hanoya shel mi. You hear that? That if Shimon separates from his own stuff for Reuven, so Reuven's got a whole bunch of stuff, right? And this isn't talking about where they're not allowed to get benefit from each other, right? Just Reuven's got a whole bunch of stuff that needs tithing, and Shimon takes from his own stuff, and he says, look, Reuven, I separated a bunch of stuff from my own stuff for you. Your stuff is not tevel, enjoy it. So, tovas ano shel mi. Who gets the tovas ano? The tovas ano is like, for example, if his, who can he? So, for example, so basically, you might have a yid whose grandson is a kohen, right? So he's a Yisrael, but his daughter married a kohen. Now the grandson is a kohen, and he wants that his grandson should be able to get truma. So what he could do is, this guy can pay somebody who has truma to give. So in this case, Shimon had separated truma for Reuven. So now Shimon's got a whole bunch of truma. Can Shimon accept payment from some other guy whose grandson is a kohen, so that he'll give the truma to the grandson, right? So that's the shaila. So Shimon separates a whole bunch of truma, a whole bunch of stuff for Reuven, and now Reuven doesn't need to separate any truma, right? Shimon separated from his own stuff, and now Reuven doesn't need to separate any truma. So now, who gets control of the truma now, so that if some guy comes along and he wants his grandson who's a kohen to get the truma, who can accept the payment, to sort of be paid to give the truma to that guy's grandson? Who gets that? So again, if a fellow separates from his own stuff on account of his friend, so who gets the who gets the benefit of it, right? Who can accept the payment to give the stuff to the guy's grandson? So so on the one hand we could say, well, it's Shimon whose fruits ultimately were the truma, right? It's Shimon's fruits that are being separated as truma. So, and if not for Shimon's fruits, then Reuven's stuff would still be tevel. Or do we say, well, if not for Reuven's tevel, lo havyun peridadein truma. Well, if not for Reuven's tevel, Shimon wouldn't have truma to be able to accept payment for, right? To give away. Omalei omakro. So Reb Zera says, the pasuk says it's called Tvuas Zarecho V'nosata. Well, the pasuk says all of your stuff, so it belongs to the fellow whose whose stuff it is. And it belongs to Reuven in our example, the guy whose field it is and whose tevel it is. Fine. Eisve, we have a kasha. Torim es chumosov ves masosov ledaito. So we said in our Mishnah that if Reuven can't get any benefit from Shimon, so then Shimon can nonetheless separate Trumas and Maisvis ledaito. V'yama tovas hanoya de balakri. And if we say that the benefit goes to Reuven, right? That the benefit goes to Reuven, haka mehanile, right? If we're saying that Shimon is separating from his own property for Reuven, and if we're saying that the Tovas Hanoya goes to Reuven, well then Reuven would be benefiting from Shimon having separated Truma. Alav shmamina Tovas Hanoya delay. Rather, it must be that the Tovas Hanoya goes to Shimon, not to Reuven. Amrei lo. We say no, Mishal Balakri, Al Shabalakri. It's talking about Shimon separating from Reuven's property for Reuven's. Reuven has a bunch of stuff, and Shimon is going into Reuven's property and separating from Reuven's stuff for Reuven. Udaito de Balakri, and with the knowledge of Reuven. But Omer, Kalarosa Listrom, Yavav Yisrom, it's talking about a situation where Reuven says, look, anybody who wants to come and separate can come and separate, but he didn't specifically appoint Shimon as his messenger. Tashma Kamanir Amar Babo Amar Yochanan Hamakdish Mosef Chomish, says Babo, the name of Yochanan, if a fellow sets aside an animal as a korban for his friend, so and then he wants to redeem it, so he adds a fifth Miskaper Osa Tmura, and the person who's getting the kapara, right? So if somebody sets aside a korban for his friend, and the friend is going to use the korban, so the friend, if he switches it for a different animal, then the halachas of Tamura apply, right? In which case, both of them become kodesh. V'atorim mishalo al she'enu shalo tovas hanoya shelo. And we say that if a fellow separates from his own stuff, so if Shimon separates from his own stuff for Reuven, so then the tovas hanoya goes to Shimon, not to Reuven. All right, fun stuff. Well, that was Daf Lamed Vav of Masechta Nedarim. We first talked about, right, we continued to look at, go a little bit deeper into the concept that you could bring right, by Mechusar Kapar, you don't need Das, you can bring it for your children. We tried to maybe say that then by Korban Chatos or by Korban Pesach, you should be able to bring it for somebody else since you don't need Das to it, but if we didn't succeed in that, then we talked about the shaila of if a fellow separates from his own stuff for his friend, so his friend doesn't need to separate any trumas. First we asked, does the person, right, who it's being separated for, does he need to know about it? And then we asked, who gets the tovas hanoya? Okay, so in the first case, first we wanted to say that maybe he doesn't need to know about it. Then we said maybe he does need to know about it. And then we asked. We also had a machlokas about who, if Shimon separates from his own stuff for Reuven, so then who can receive potentially payment in order to give the truma to a specific kohen. So we saw machlokas. First we said that it would be Reuven's, then we said it would be Shimon's. Alright, friends, that was Daf Lamed Vav, Masechet Nedarim. Hope you enjoyed. Peace out.